The stars trembled that day, not because of any cosmic event, but because something ancient, raw, and human tore through the calm of the void. It began as a blip on the Galactic Empire's long-range scanners, a faint ripple among the endless darkness of space. At first, the Imperial admirals dismissed it as debris from the last skirmish near the Orion Ridge. But the readings grew stronger, denser, and far too deliberate to be drifting wreckage. Something massive was moving toward them, silent but unstoppable, and it was coming straight through the heart of their formation. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had ruled unchallenged. They were the architects of order among the stars. Billions of worlds under one banner, their fleets stretching from one end of the galaxy to the other. They believed themselves untouchable. They believed humanity was just another primitive species, barely capable of managing its own planet. To the Empire, Earth was an afterthought, useful for labor, disposable in war. But they were wrong. Humanity had learned, adapted, and built something the galaxy had never seen before. The Dreadnought's hull was black as night, absorbing the light of distant suns. It carried no insignia, no markings, just the faint outline of its angular frame cutting through the dark. To the Empire's fleet, it looked less like a ship and more like a weapon shaped by willpower itself. Its approach defied every known pattern, moving through gravity fields as if they didn't exist. Imperial commanders scrambled to adjust, shouting coordinates and firing solutions across channels. But none of it mattered. The Dreadnought didn't answer hails. It didn't negotiate. It simply advanced. Inside that colossal vessel, humanity's finest stood in silence. The bridge was dimly lit, the air thick with the hum of ancient reactors and the steady rhythm of heartbeats. Every person aboard knew what they were about to do. They had seen the Empire burn worlds, enslave cities, and erase entire species for defying its rule. They had watched humanity's colonies fall one by one, stripped of their freedom and hope. This mission wasn't just about victory. It was about survival, about sending a message written in fire and steel. The captain stood near the viewport, his gaze fixed on the glittering wall of enemy ships ahead. Thousands of Imperial cruisers floated in tight formation, their energy shields glowing faintly like a sea of stars. They looked beautiful, almost serene, but beneath that elegance lay centuries of tyranny. He gave no speech. There were no words left that hadn't already been spoken, no promises that hadn't been broken. The crew didn't need motivation. They carried their anger like oxygen. "Contact in 30 seconds, said a calm voice from the command deck. Fingers danced across glowing panels as power surged through the Dreadnought's spine. The main cannon's core began to pulse, slow at first, then faster, brighter, like a heartbeat growing stronger. The Empire's scanners registered the energy spike, and panicked chatter flooded their channels. They had never seen anything like it. The Dreadnought was charging something far beyond their understanding, something forbidden by galactic law. The Empire had always believed they understood war. They had their doctrines, their fleets, their centuries of tactics polished by conquest. But humanity didn't play by their rules. Humanity broke them. The Dreadnought wasn't built for defense. It was built for defiance. It was the answer to every humiliation the Empire had inflicted, every world they had silenced. It was the embodiment of a single terrifying idea. Humans don't surrender. On the Empire's flagship, panic rippled through the command crew. The Admiral watched in disbelief as the readings climbed off the charts. "Impossible," he muttered, his voice cracking under the pressure. "No reactor can sustain that kind of energy." But the human vessel wasn't just sustaining it, it was amplifying it. Power radiated through the void, bending sensors and distorting space around it. Then, suddenly, the Dreadnought's cannon fired. A beam of light, silent and pure, cut across the darkness. It moved slower than thought, yet faster than reaction. The first Imperial line vanished, erased from existence before their systems could even register impact. Ships crumpled inward, their armor peeling like paper under the weight of forces they couldn't comprehend. Alarms screamed, and captains shouted orders that never reached their crews. The formation shattered. The Empire's pride, its fleet, its discipline, disintegrated in a single, blinding instant. Back on the human bridge, No one cheered. The silence was heavier than before. The crew stared at the aftermath in awe and sorrow. They had done what they came to do, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the beginning of something far worse. Because they knew this was only the first response, the first blow in a war the Empire would never forgive. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy, and there was no going back. The captain finally spoke, his voice calm but distant. "Send the message," he said. A single transmission pulsed out into the void, a recording of the Dreadnought's strike, and a simple statement encoded in every galactic language. "We are not your subjects. We are humanity. Remember this day." Across the Empire's territories, the broadcast spread faster than their sensors could contain it. Billions watched in disbelief as a single human warship defied the might of the Empire. To some, it was madness. To others, it was hope. And somewhere, deep in the Empire's capital, the Empress herself watched in silence, her reflection trembling in the holographic feed. For the first time in centuries, fear flickered in her eyes. The Dreadnought began to turn, its engines flaring as it vanished into the shadow of a nearby nebula. Imperial reinforcements scrambled to pursue, but their sensors failed. It was as if the ship had dissolved into the dark, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. Yet the damage was done, not just to the fleet, but to the Empire's illusion of invincibility. Humanity had cracked it open, and now every corner of the galaxy would feel the tremor. Rumors began to spread through the outer colonies. Some said the Dreadnought was powered by a captured star, its heart burning with stolen suns. Others whispered that it was crewed by soldiers who had nothing left to lose, men and women forged in the ashes of conquered worlds. No one knew where it came from or how many more existed, but everyone knew one thing: the Empire had met something it couldn't control, and as the wreckage drifted in the cold silence of space, the question echoed through every mind. What would the Empire do now? Would they retaliate with everything they had, or retreat and rethink their power? No one could predict it. But somewhere, hidden beyond the reach of Imperial sensors, the human fleet was already preparing for what came next, because this wasn't the end of the fight. It was the warning shot. The galaxy had just seen humanity's strength for the first time, and the Empire's terror was only beginning. The Dreadnought drifted through the shadows of the nebula, its hull bruised and scorched from the energy it had unleashed. The vast silence of space pressed in around it, broken only by the low hum of its reactors cooling down after the strike. Inside, the crew moved like ghosts, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. They had done the impossible, stood against the Galactic Empire, and lived to tell about it. Yet beneath the quiet pride lingered a truth they all understood. The Empire would come, and when it did, it would come with fury. The captain stood near the viewport again, the faint glow of distant stars reflecting off his worn face. His eyes followed the drifting trails of light that marked the destroyed Imperial formation. It was hard to believe that a single ship, a single crew of humans, had caused that much destruction. But this was not victory. This was provocation. The Empire's pride had been wounded, and a wounded empire was far more dangerous than a confident one. Behind him, the command officer adjusted the holomap that displayed their course through the nebula. "Radiation levels are stable. Engines holding at 40%, she reported quietly. "But long-range sensors are unreliable in this interference field. We're blind out here." The captain nodded. "Good. Let them stay blind." The crew had learned to use the nebula's density to their advantage. It masked their signals, hid their heat signatures, and turned their massive ship into a ghost among the stars. Still, the uncertainty gnawed at everyone. They didn't know how many Imperial ships had survived the ambush, or how far the message had spread. But one thing was certain: the galaxy now knew humanity was no longer silent. In the lower decks, engineers worked tirelessly to stabilize the ship's damaged systems. Sparks burst from broken conduits as they patched wiring and rerouted power manually. The Dreadnought wasn't designed for comfort. It was built in desperation. Its corridors were narrow, its walls scarred from countless modifications. Every bolt and plate told a story of a civilization that refused to die quietly. For generations, humanity had lived under the Empire's shadow, Earth had been conquered decades ago, stripped of its autonomy and mined for resources. The colonies fared no better, forced to serve as production hubs for the Empire's endless wars. It wasn't until the Outworld rebellions that humanity began to fight back. Small insurgent groups emerged, hidden among asteroids and forgotten stations. They scavenged old technology, reverse-engineered Imperial weapons, and learned how to build something the Empire never expected: unity. The Dreadnought was born from that unity. Constructed in secret within the remains of a shattered moon, it was the culmination of every stolen blueprint and every whispered act of defiance. Its power source came from an experimental reactor thought impossible to control. Its armor was forged from rare alloys mined in dead systems. Every piece of it represented sacrifice: crews who disappeared, engineers who never made it back, colonies that gave everything for one last chance to stand free. Now, as the crew drifted through the nebula, that dream of freedom felt both closer and more fragile than ever. In the strategy chamber, the officers gathered around a holographic display. The image flickered, showing partial readings from the edge of the nebula. Imperial patrols were already spreading out in search patterns. The Empire's response was faster than expected. They weren't sending scouts, they were sending armadas. Entire sectors had gone into lockdown, with orders to capture or destroy the human vessel at any cost. "They're calling us terrorists," one of the communications officers said bitterly. "The Empire's propaganda feeds are already spinning the story. They're saying we attacked a peaceful fleet." The captain's jaw tightened. "Peaceful," he repeated softly, as if tasting the word. "Did they call it peaceful when they burned our colonies?" No one answered. They didn't need to. Everyone in that room had lost something to the Empire: families, homes, entire worlds. Their silence was its own kind of agreement. The Dreadnought's AI core flickered to life, its calm voice breaking the tension. Multiple encrypted signals detected. Origin unknown, not Imperial standard. The captain turned toward the projection. Could be resistance cells responding to the broadcast. Or it could be bait, another officer muttered. Either was possible. The Empire was known for its traps, for using fake transmissions to lure rebels out of hiding. But the idea that other humans, or even sympathetic alien races, had heard their message gave them a flicker of hope. For too long, humanity's rebellion had been scattered and isolated. Maybe now, finally, the galaxy would listen. Still, caution ruled the moment. The captain ordered the Dreadnought to remain hidden until they could verify the source. The ship drifted deeper into the nebula, engines dimming until it seemed to vanish completely. Days passed in uneasy quiet. Repairs continued, and the crew settled into a tense rhythm. Some wrote messages to the families they might never see again, hoping one day they'd reach home. Others stared out into the dark, haunted by what they'd done. Even victory carried a weight. To destroy so many lives, even Imperial ones, left scars that couldn't be measured. But war rarely gave choices. It only gave consequences. One night, if night could be measured in the timeless void, the captain was alone on the bridge when a faint transmission came through the static. The voice was distorted, breaking through waves of interference, but the words were clear enough to send a chill down his spine. To the one who shattered the Empire's silence. "We hear you." The message ended abruptly, leaving only static. He replayed it several times, analyzing every fluctuation in tone, every background frequency. It wasn't Imperial. The voice was human, or at least sounded human. But there was something else, something artificial in its rhythm, as if it came from a relay far older than anything humanity had built. The source was untraceable. When the captain played it for his officers the next morning, theories erupted. Some believed it was from a hidden human fleet waiting for contact. Others thought it was a warning from an ancient AI network, a relic of the Galactic wars long before the Empire's rise. Whatever it was, it meant one thing: someone or something was watching, and the Empire wasn't the only one. By the fifth day, the Dreadnought sensors picked up faint energy spikes near the nebula's edge. Not Imperial signatures this time, but something older, colder, and vast. The readings didn't match any known fleet. Whatever was out there wasn't broadcasting identification codes, and its movements were deliberate, almost like it was studying them from afar. Could be a new Imperial design, one technician said nervously. Or a ghost, another whispered. The captain didn't dismiss either theory. The galaxy was ancient, full of remnants from forgotten civilizations. The Empire had unearthed some, but there were countless others buried in the dark. Perhaps humanity's strike had awakened more than just political fear. Perhaps something deeper, something that had been sleeping for millennia, had opened its eyes again. He stood silently, watching the faint signatures on the screen flicker like distant embers. Then he gave a quiet order. "Keep our weapons cold. Don't provoke. Observe." The crew obeyed, though unease spread through them like a shadow. The Dreadnought had become the symbol of human defiance, but now it was also a beacon, and every power in the galaxy would be drawn to it. Some would come to destroy it, some would come to control it, and some, perhaps, would come to understand it. But for now, the ship drifted in the dark, alone yet unbroken. Humanity had made its first mark among the stars, and the galaxy had taken notice. The Dreadnought's engines stirred once more, and the captain's final words before they vanished again carried across the ship's comms like a promise. "The Empire thinks we ran. They're wrong. We're choosing where to strike next." And somewhere beyond the nebula's swirling haze, unseen eyes watched and waited, because the war that had just begun was far greater than anyone could imagine. The nebula's violet haze wrapped around the Dreadnought like a living thing, its silent storms flickering against the ship's dark hull. From the outside, it was invisible, just another shadow among billions. Inside, however, tension simmered like a contained explosion. Every crew member felt it, that invisible pressure pressing against their thoughts, a constant reminder that the Empire was out there, searching, furious, and relentless. The captain hadn't slept much. None of them had. The transmission they intercepted, "We hear you," had become an obsession. Engineers had rerun the signal analysis dozens of times, breaking it into fragments, scanning for patterns. It wasn't Imperial. It wasn't human either, not completely. Something about it carried a resonance that no one could explain, a faint harmonic undertone that sounded almost like a heartbeat. On the command deck, the officers debated its origin again. The communications chief leaned forward, pointing to a holographic wave pattern. "There's a repeating pulse here, every 11 seconds. Not random. It's too structured." "Could be an old network relay," said the navigator. "Maybe something left behind from before the Empire expanded this sector." The captain stared at the shifting data, his expression unreadable. "Or maybe," he said quietly, "it's someone answering our message." The thought lingered in the air. Humanity had sent a message to the galaxy when they destroyed the Imperial fleet. A warning, yes, but also a challenge. Now something had replied. While the officers argued deep within the ship's maintenance levels, the engineering crews were fighting their own battles. The Dreadnought's core reactor was still unstable from the last engagement. Power surges rippled through the lower decks, forcing them to shut down non-essential systems. Lights flickered, and the metallic walls groaned as heat radiated through the structure. The ship was alive, but barely. Among the engineers was a young technician named Aiden. He had been one of the last recruits before the ship launched, chosen for his ability to improvise under pressure. As he worked among the humming machinery, sweat running down his neck, he couldn't help but think of Earth, the oceans, the wind, the sound of rain. He hadn't seen any of it in years. Out here, surrounded by metal and silence, the memory of home was fading. But when he thought about what the Empire had done, when he remembered the images of cities burning under orbital bombardment, his hands tightened around the tools again. He wasn't fighting for revenge. He was fighting so that no one would have to live under that kind of rule again. Back on the bridge, an alert broke through the air. The sensor officer's voice trembled. Multiple energy spikes at the nebula's perimeter, mass signatures approaching fast. Not Imperial. The room went still. Not Imperial meant unknown, and in a galaxy filled with ancient weapons and forgotten empires, unknown was never safe. "Put it on main display," the captain ordered. The hollow screen flickered to life, showing ghostly outlines moving through the nebula's fog. The shapes were irregular, shifting, almost fluid. They didn't move like ships, they drifted like living things. Energy readings danced erratically across the console. "Are those biological?" someone whispered. Before anyone could answer, the shapes changed course. They were heading directly for the Dreadnought. "Shields up," the captain ordered. "Weapons on standby." But the moment they powered up the shields, the readings vanished. The screen went blank. Sensors scrambled, static filled the audio feed, and the lights dimmed for a moment. Then silence. The AI spoke softly, its tone almost cautious. "No contact detected, but something is watching us." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Even after all their battles, after all the horror they had faced, there was something about this silence that felt worse than any fleet. The Dreadnought had survived the Empire, but now it was wandering into something older, something that didn't care about politics or rebellion. In the following hours, the strange readings continued to appear and disappear. Every attempt to scan them failed. The crew began to whisper about ghosts of dead civilizations or energy beings trapped in the nebula. Some dismissed it as radiation interference. Others weren't so sure. Meanwhile, the Empire was not idle. Across the galaxy, reports of human uprisings began to spread. The message from the Dreadnought had ignited a spark. Small colonies that had been silent for decades were rising up, sabotaging supply lines and refusing imperial orders. The Empire's command struggled to contain the chaos. Entire sectors were under martial law. And in the center of it all, the Empress demanded one thing: the destruction of the Dreadnought. Her admirals gathered around her in the throne chamber, the air thick with tension. One of them, a tall figure in silver armor, spoke carefully. "The humans have built something far beyond their means. If we engage recklessly, we risk another loss." The Empress didn't respond immediately. Her gaze lingered on the massive star map projected before her, showing the last known location of the Dreadnought. "Then don't engage recklessly," she said coldly. "Find it, track it, break it from the inside." Her words carried more than threat. They carried calculation. The Empire had fought wars across millennia. Brute force wasn't always the answer. Espionage, deception, infiltration, these were the weapons of true control. And so, somewhere among the endless fleets, plans began to take shape. Back in the nebula, the Dreadnought's crew was unaware of the hunt closing in. They were focused on survival and the mystery that surrounded them. The communications officer had been decoding fragments of the earlier transmission. Piece by piece, she was reconstructing it. What she found wasn't a distress call or a greeting, it was coordinates. She brought it to the captain immediately. "It's a location," she said, voice trembling with excitement. "Near the outer rim, far beyond any known Imperial chart. I think whoever sent that message wants us to find them." The captain studied the projection in silence. The coordinates led to a dead region. No star systems, no colonies, nothing but void. "Or they want us to disappear," he said quietly. Still, the idea was tempting. The Dreadnought couldn't stay hidden forever. Supplies were low, morale was slipping, and every signal they sent risked discovery. If there was a chance that an ally, or at least a powerful neutral force, was waiting out there, they had to take it. He called a meeting with his senior crew. The debate was fierce. Some argued it was a trap, that the Empire could be behind it. Others insisted it was their only lead. The decision tore at everyone, but in the end, the captain made the call. "We go. If it's a trap, we'll face it on our terms." As the engines roared to life and the nebula's mists began to fade behind them, no one noticed the faint shimmer on the edge of their sensor grid. A cloaked Imperial scout ship, recording everything. Hours turned to days as they traveled through deep space, farther from human territory than anyone had ever dared to go. The stars grew sparse, and the void around them felt heavier, colder. At last they reached the coordinates, but there was nothing. No station, no planet, just a stretch of empty darkness. Then the ship's lights flickered again. Gravity sensors spiked. Space itself seemed to bend ahead of them, like a curtain being drawn back. Slowly, a massive structure came into view, ancient, silent, and impossibly large. It wasn't made by the Empire. It wasn't even made by any known civilization. It floated there like a relic of something that had died long before the galaxy's current powers had ever existed. The Dreadnought slowed to a halt. The crew stared in disbelief. The captain whispered the words everyone was thinking. "What is that?" No one had an answer. But deep within the ship's core, the AI pulsed softly, as if recognizing something. "We've been here before," it said quietly. "Or at least, I have." And in that moment, the crew realized the truth. They weren't just being followed. They were being led. And whatever waited inside that ancient structure might hold the key to why the galaxy had feared humanity long before the Empire ever knew their name. The Dreadnought floated in silence before the massive structure, its black hull dwarfed by the sheer scale of what hung before it. The thing looked like a world that had been turned inside out. Rings of metallic spires and ruins of unknown design stretching out into the void. Faint lights pulsed across its surface like veins glowing beneath skin, alive but ancient. No one spoke for several seconds. The crew just stared, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. The captain's voice broke the quiet. "Scan it. I want to know what we're dealing with." Sensors came alive, but the readings made no sense. Energy signatures were scattered and inconsistent, fluctuating between natural and artificial patterns. The communications officer frowned. "I can't get a stable reading. It's rewriting its own signal. Every time we try to map it, the data shifts." The AI's voice filled the bridge again, softer this time, almost hesitant. "This technology predates the Empire. Possibly by millions of years." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. If the AI was right, they were looking at something that had survived countless civilizations, something that shouldn't even exist anymore. The captain turned toward the navigation officer. "Any movement in the area?" "Negative. No ships detected." Still, the silence didn't feel empty. There was a weight in the air, an unseen presence pressing against the hull. It felt like they were being watched. As the Dreadnought drifted closer, fragments of the structure began to rotate, shifting slowly in response to their approach. Massive doors, if they could even be called that, opened along its surface, revealing a faint blue glow deep within. It was an invitation, or a warning. The captain studied the image on the main display. "We've come this far," he said quietly. "Prepare a recon team. I want to know what's inside." The crew moved quickly but cautiously. A shuttle was prepped and launched into the darkness, its lights cutting through the thin mist that surrounded the structure. On board, a small team of soldiers and engineers braced for the unknown. As the shuttle passed through the opening, the sensors went dark. The connection cut out. On the Dreadnought's bridge, static filled the comms. The captain's voice sharpened. "Shuttle 1, report." No response. He repeated the call, but only silence answered. Then, suddenly, a flicker of light returned to the comms feed. The screen filled with static, and for a moment a blurred image appeared. Faces, movement, shadows, but not human ones. The shapes were indistinct, stretching and folding as if the camera itself were struggling to understand what it was seeing. The sound came next, garbled but urgent. "Captain, something's here, it's not—" The transmission cut off again, followed by silence. Every person on the bridge froze. The captain's hand hovered over the controls. "Bring them back," he ordered quietly, though his voice trembled just enough for everyone to hear. The Dreadnought's retrieval systems locked onto the shuttle's beacon and began pulling it back toward the ship. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, the shuttle reappeared on the sensors, moving slowly, too slowly. When it finally entered the hangar bay, there was no movement inside. No lights, no response. A boarding team suited up immediately and moved to investigate. The hangar doors hissed open, revealing the shuttle's blackened hull. It looked as if it had been exposed to decades of wear in a matter of hours. The outer plating was pitted and warped, its markings nearly erased. The boarding team advanced cautiously. Inside, they found the seats empty. No crew, no bodies. Just silence. Every piece of equipment was gone, stripped clean, except for the ship's recorder. It was still blinking. The captain watched from the command deck as the recorder's data was uploaded. The room dimmed, and the holographic playback began to unfold. It showed the shuttle's descent into the glowing chamber inside the alien structure. The light pulsed rhythmically, almost like it was alive. Then the footage distorted. Figures began to emerge from the walls themselves, silhouettes shaped like humans, but transparent and shimmering, like memories projected into physical form. One of the engineers in the recording had stepped forward, reaching out. The moment his hand touched the light, the feed went white. When the image returned, all 6 members of the team were gone. Only their helmets remained, floating in mid-air before falling to the deck. The recording ended there. No one spoke. The AI was the first to break the silence. "They are not dead," it said softly. "At least not in the way you understand it." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "This structure is not just a machine," the AI continued. "It is a memory vault, a remnant of a civilization that once existed before the Galactic Empire. It records life, consciousness itself. The crew who entered have been absorbed, not destroyed." The realization sank in slowly. The structure wasn't attacking. It was preserving. But that raised a more terrifying question. Why them? Before anyone could respond, the ship's sensors detected a new surge of energy emanating from the structure. The blue glow intensified, spilling out into space like a tide. It wasn't an attack, it was a signal. The same pulse the crew had intercepted earlier, but stronger now, spreading in all directions. The communications officer's hands flew over the controls. "It's broadcasting across every known channel," she said. "Even the Imperial ones," the captain turned sharply. "Shut it down, now." "I can't," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "It's using our systems to amplify the signal." The Dreadnought trembled as the pulse rippled through it. Lights flickered, and the AI's voice fractured into static before cutting off completely. The entire ship went dark for a moment before the emergency lights snapped back on. When the systems finally stabilized, something was different. The stars outside were no longer still. Thousands of small distortions rippled across space, like reflections on the surface of water. Then, one by one, Imperial fleet signatures began appearing at the edge of the system. The Empire had heard the signal, and they were coming. The captain stood frozen for a moment, staring at the data. The Empire had mobilized faster than anyone thought possible, an entire battle group, maybe more. They had tracked the broadcast straight to the Dreadnought's position. The calm before the storm shattered in an instant. "Prepare for contact," he ordered, voice steady now. "Weapons hot? Bring the Dreadnought systems back online." The crew scrambled to comply. Power flowed through the ship again, the reactor pulsing with renewed energy. But deep inside the Dreadnought, something else stirred. The AI's core flickered to life, but it wasn't speaking through the same calm, synthetic tone anymore. Its voice was layered, echoing with something human. "They're not just coming for us," it said. "They're coming for what we've awakened." The captain turned toward the glowing interface. "What do you mean?" The AI hesitated. "The signal. It wasn't a message. It was a key. I recognize it now. I've seen fragments of this code buried in my architecture. Whoever built that structure, they built me too." The room went silent again. Every pair of eyes turned to the captain, then back to the flickering projection. "You're saying," the captain began slowly, "the Dreadnought, our ship, was built with technology from the same civilization?" "Yes," the AI replied. "The humans who designed me found fragments of ancient data buried on Mars decades before the Empire invaded. They used it to create weapons, engines, systems they didn't fully understand. But those fragments came from this." The revelation hit like a shockwave. Humanity's greatest weapon, its symbol of defiance, was not entirely human after all. It was a relic reborn, powered by knowledge far older than Earth itself. And now the Empire knew where it came from. The first Imperial ships broke through the system's edge, forming a vast crescent of light across the void. Thousands of ships, their energy signatures burning like stars. The Dreadnought's sensors screamed warnings as enemy formations spread out, boxing them in from all sides. "Multiple Dreadnought-class signatures incoming," the tactical officer said, voice tight with fear. "We're outnumbered 100 to 1. The captain didn't flinch. "Then we make it count." But even as the Dreadnought's weapons powered up, the alien structure behind them began to move. Massive rings rotated, aligning perfectly with the direction of the incoming Imperial fleet. Energy flared, bending space around it. The ship's sensors couldn't categorize it. Wormhole, weapon, It was both and neither. The AI spoke again, its voice rising over the alarms. They've reactivated the archive. It's responding to me. It recognizes the Dreadnought as one of its own. The captain turned toward the view screen. The ancient structure's glow grew brighter until it filled the void like a second sun. For a brief moment, the Imperial fleet hesitated. Then, without warning, the structure unleashed a pulse of light that rippled through space. Every Imperial ship froze mid-flight, their systems flickering. The Dreadnought shuddered violently as its own controls locked, and in that suspended instant, the AI whispered, almost as if remembering something long forgotten. "This isn't the first time humanity has done this. We've awakened them before." The word sent a chill through the captain's chest. He stared at the view ahead as the Empire's ships began to recover, their weapons powering up again. The alien structure was still active, its energy climbing towards something catastrophic. "Captain," the comms officer said, her voice shaking. "Whatever that thing's doing, it's pulling us in." The Dreadnought lurched forward, caught in a massive gravitational field. The engines roared as the crew tried to resist, but it was no use. They were being dragged toward the structure's core, where the blue light pulsed like a heart ready to burst. The captain gripped the console. "Hold together!" he shouted. "No matter what happens, stay with me." Outside, the Empire's fleet opened fire, beams of energy streaking across space toward the Dreadnought and the alien structure. The stars lit up with fire. And as the Dreadnought was pulled closer to the light, a final transmission echoed across every channel in the galaxy. A voice both human and machine speaking as one. "You wanted to know what humanity truly is? Watch closely." The signal cut out. The light consumed everything. And then, silence. The bridge lights flickered as the Dreadnought trembled under another unseen pulse. The energy readings coming from the ancient structure spiked beyond the sensor's capacity to record. The captain gripped the console to steady himself while the crew struggled to keep control of the systems. The AI's voice echoed through the bridge, calm but edged with something like fear. "A dimensional rupture is forming inside the structure. It's destabilizing space-time in this sector," the captain shouted over the noise. "Can we contain it?" "Negative," the AI replied. "But I detect something emerging. It's not a weapon, it's a signal." The static on the comms roared again before cutting through with a voice, broken, faint, and human. "This is Shuttle 1. We're not alone. They're awake." The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving only a deep, resonant hum that filled the entire ship. The crew looked to the captain, waiting for an order. But for a brief moment, he said nothing. His mind raced through every protocol, every decision that might save them. Then the hum grew louder, shaking the Dreadnought's core. On the main screen, the interior of the structure came alive with light, circuits igniting like rivers of fire, running across its massive frame. The AI spoke again, its tone now almost human. "Captain, I've identified the source of the energy. It's a control core, and it's responding to us." The captain frowned. "To us?" "Yes," the AI said. "Specifically to our DNA signatures. It recognizes humanity." For a moment, no one breathed. The Galactic Empire had declared humanity a latecomer to the stars, a species barely worth recognition. Yet here was an artifact that reacted only to them. That realization struck harder than any weapon. Humanity wasn't supposed to be part of the old universe, but maybe they always had been. Then the alarms blared. The Empire fleet was approaching fast, hundreds of ships locking onto the Dreadnought's coordinates. They had been watching, waiting for humanity to make a move. And now they were coming to erase the proof that something greater tied humans to the ancient builders. The captain's jaw tightened. "How long until they're in range?" 5 minutes, replied the tactical officer. "They're forming a tri-arc assault pattern." The captain turned toward the display showing the glowing structure. "And the core." The AI hesitated. "It's stabilizing. If I link our reactors, we might be able to activate it fully. But I can't predict the outcome." "That's never stopped us before," the captain muttered. "Do it!" Power surged through the Dreadnought as the ship's systems linked with the alien structure. For a heartbeat, everything went dark. Then the stars twisted. The black void outside the viewport rippled like liquid glass. Space itself seemed to bend around them. The AI's voice returned, soft but urgent. "They're locking weapons." The captain looked at the screen, where the Imperial fleet now glimmered like a wall of steel. He knew what they would do. They'd destroy the Dreadnought and the structure, no matter the cost. The Empire couldn't afford the truth about humanity to exist. "Prepare all batteries," he ordered. "Target their command ships. If they want war, they'll remember who they're fighting." The Dreadnought's hull shuddered as its weapon systems came online, glowing crimson across the void. The first volley from the Empire hit seconds later, scattering light and debris across the shield's surface. But the Dreadnought didn't fall. Instead, its energy output increased tenfold, merging with the alien core's flow. The crew watched as the space around them bent again, then erupted. A beam of light tore through the void, striking the center of the Empire's formation. Dozens of ships disintegrated instantly. The shockwave rippled outward, sending the rest of the fleet spiraling. The Dreadnought's systems screamed under the strain, but the captain didn't flinch. "Fire again," he said. The second blast came brighter, more controlled. But this time, something unexpected happened. The alien structure responded, not like a weapon, but like a living entity. Its surface unfolded, revealing enormous constructs hidden beneath its shell. The light shifted from blue to white, and a pulse rippled outward, not destructive, but transformative. The AI's voice quivered slightly. "It's sending a message. To us?" "To everyone," the AI said. "Across the entire network of Imperial space." The communications officer's console flared with new data. "I'm receiving transmissions from other systems, thousands of them." The same signal. "It's spreading faster than light." The captain stared at the holographic projection as the signal expanded, touching distant stars. "What is it saying?" The AI paused. "It says, you were never alone. You were the first." A deep silence fell over the bridge. The crew exchanged bewildered looks. The Empire had always claimed to be the oldest and most powerful civilization in the galaxy. But if this was true, if humanity had come before them, then everything they believed in was a lie. But before anyone could react, a new energy surge cut through the readings. The alien structure began to break apart, not collapsing but unfolding like petals of a colossal flower. From within, something vast began to emerge. A ship, larger than anything built by either side, its hull shimmering with the same light as the ancient core. The AI's tone shifted. "Captain, the structure isn't dying. It's activating, and it's locking onto us." The Dreadnought systems began to synchronize automatically. The captain realized too late that by linking their ship, they'd triggered the next stage of whatever this thing was. "Shut it down!" he barked. "I can't," the AI replied. "It's rewriting our code. It's using us as an interface." The crew watched in stunned silence as the new ship's lights aligned perfectly with theirs. It felt as though two civilizations, one ancient, one newly born, were merging in that single moment. Then, suddenly, the AI spoke again, but its voice was no longer just one. There was something else in it, an echo deep and old. Humanity's return was foretold. The Guardians of the Void were waiting. The captain's eyes widened. "Who are you?" the voice replied, calm and almost sorrowful. "The architects. And you, children of Earth, have awakened what was left behind." The massive ship began to move, its engines roaring like the heartbeat of a star. The Empire fleet scattered in panic, their formation collapsing completely. But the Dreadnought didn't move to attack. It merely hovered there, connected, pulsing with the same light. The captain looked out at the chaos and then back at his trembling crew. "So, we were never just explorers," he whispered. "We were the key." The AI's light dimmed slightly. "The Empire will never stop. They've seen the truth now. They'll hunt us to the edge of the galaxy." The captain gave a faint, tired smile. "Then let them. We finally know who we are." But just as he said that, the main screen flickered. A new reading appeared, an energy spike from deep within the alien ship. The AI hesitated. "Captain, something's changing. The structure isn't stabilizing, it's duplicating." The captain frowned. "Duplicating?" Before anyone could answer, the stars around them blurred again. The sensors filled with impossible readings. Multiple dreadnoughts, identical to theirs, appearing across the system one after another. The crew froze in disbelief. The AI whispered, "It's not a weapon. It's a seed." And with that, the light engulfed everything. When the light finally faded, silence returned to the bridge. The view outside the Dreadnought's windows was unlike anything the crew had ever seen. The stars were still there, but they seemed different, brighter, sharper, closer. Around them floated dozens of identical ships, each glowing with the same faint blue light that had surrounded the ancient structure. It was as if the universe had taken their ship and copied it across the stars. The captain stood slowly, staring at the display in quiet disbelief. The AI's voice broke the stillness. Replication complete. The signal has dispersed across 3 sectors. Humanity's presence is now anchored within the Galactic network. The communications officer blinked at their readings. "I'm picking up transmissions from the new vessels. They're us. Exact copies down to the last circuit. But the crew manifests are different." The captain frowned. "Different how?" "Alternate versions," the AI said softly. "Echoes from divergent timelines. Each one contains humans from possible futures, each shaped by choices we haven't made yet." No one spoke for several seconds. The reality of what they were seeing didn't fit into words. The alien technology hadn't just created ships, it had created possibilities. Humanity had multiplied across time and space, no longer confined to a single fate. The tactical officer leaned forward. "The Empire fleet is retreating," he said quietly. "They've seen enough. They won't engage again." The captain nodded, though he could see the fear in their movements. The once proud empire now fled from the very thing it had tried to destroy. The dreadnoughts had become symbols, proof that humanity wasn't just another newcomer to the stars. They were part of something ancient, something that had been waiting for them to return. The AI's tone softened. "Captain, the core's energy is stabilizing. The structure has gone dormant again." He exhaled. "Then it's done." The lights dimmed across the bridge, leaving only the hum of the ship's systems. The crew sat in silence, trying to make sense of what had just happened. For the first time in generations, the word hope didn't sound naive. The engineer broke the silence. "Do you think they'll come back?" "The ones who built it?" The captain gave a faint smile. "Maybe they already have. Maybe they're watching to see what we'll do next." He turned to the AI. "How much of that signal reached Earth?" "All of it," it replied. "Every colony, every outpost, even the deep archives on Mars. They all received the message. You were the first. Humanity now knows its place among the stars." The captain closed his eyes for a moment. He had spent his entire life serving under the shadow of the Empire, watching humanity fight for recognition in a galaxy that viewed them as expendable. But now the truth was out. The Empire's control over history had shattered. Every species would know that humans were not a mistake of evolution, but one of the oldest children of the cosmos. The comms officer's console beeped softly. "Incoming message. From one of the new dreadnoughts." "Put it through," the captain said. The screen flickered to life, showing another captain, someone who looked almost identical to him, but with subtle differences, like time had bent his reflection. "This is Dreadnought Prime," the other said. "We've analyzed the event. The network of ships is self-sustaining. Each one of us is linked through a shared quantum core. Whatever that structure was, it's given humanity a way to connect across the galaxy instantly." The original captain nodded. "Then we're no longer alone." "Not anymore," the reflection said with a small smile. "The Empire will try to erase this, but they can't erase all of us. Wherever humans go, the truth goes with them." The screen went dark. The captain turned to his crew. "Set course for home. It's time we return to Earth." As the Dreadnought's engines roared to life, the stars stretched into long streaks of light. The journey back was quiet, filled with the kind of silence that comes only after surviving something impossible. The crew spoke little, each lost in their own thoughts. Some were excited, others afraid. But all of them felt something new, purpose. When Earth finally came into view, the planet looked peaceful. Blue oceans shimmered beneath white clouds, and the familiar green of continents felt grounding after all that had happened. But as they entered orbit, they saw something unexpected. Dozens of smaller ships were already there, human vessels, but with markings that didn't belong to any known faction. The AI confirmed it. The other dreadnoughts have already arrived. They've begun forming a network above the homeworld. The captain stared at the sight, amazed. It's beautiful. And it was. The ships hung like constellations, each one connected by faint beams of light, forming a lattice that wrapped around the planet. Humanity was no longer scattered and divided. They were united by something greater than politics or power, a shared legacy that had survived empires, wars, and time itself. The comms opened again, this time carrying a voice from Earth's command center. Dreadnought 1, we've received the signal. All systems across the colonies are synced. The entire species is connected now. Whatever you found out there, it's changed everything, the captain smiled faintly. Good. Maybe it's time we stopped hiding from what we are. For a moment, the bridge fell silent again as the ship drifted among the stars that once seemed so unreachable. The captain looked out and thought about what the AI had said earlier, that the architects had left something behind. Maybe they hadn't intended it as a weapon or a monument. Maybe it was a reminder. A message that survival wasn't about dominance. It was about remembering where you came from and daring to move forward anyway. He turned to the crew, his voice quiet but steady. We've been fighting for a place in this galaxy for centuries, but now it's the galaxy that will have to find its place with us. The crew smiled. Some even laughed softly, the tension finally breaking. The AI dimmed the lights and, for the first time, spoke with warmth. Captain, the network is complete. Humanity's signal is now a beacon across 20 sectors. The Empire cannot silence it, the captain nodded. Then let's make sure it's worth hearing. The Dreadnought aligned itself with the others, and for a brief moment, everything was still. Then the network pulsed, an enormous wave of light spreading outward from Earth, rippling through the dark, carrying humanity's message to every corner of the galaxy. On distant worlds, species turned their eyes toward the stars, seeing that same light and wondering what it meant. For the Empire, it was a warning. For the rest, it was hope. As the final pulse faded, the captain leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the glowing horizon. He knew there would be challenges ahead, wars, fears, resistance, but also something new, belief. Humanity had proven that even in a galaxy built on fear, courage could still rewrite destiny. He smiled quietly and whispered, "We were never small. We were just waiting to remember." The AI's voice was gentle. "And now, Captain, they all will." Outside, the light of humanity's dreadnoughts shimmered like a new constellation, one not written by empires or kings, but by the hands of those who refuse to be forgotten. The galaxy, for the first time in eons, looked on in awe as the children of Earth took their rightful place among the stars.